chair.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another glorious edition of Ask That. As you see, I've gone back to my beautiful, easy intro. It is Friday afternoon. It is sunny here, it's sunny there, and raining somewhere else, but we're not going to talk about them. Today, I have with me Jim Holmes, and we're going to have a fruitful conversation. I've been looking forward to having this for a long time. But before we get there, Jim, why don't you give a quick introduction of who you are?
Let's see. Single dad, taking care of a couple kids, long time involved with the community. At the moment, I do kind of testing and quality work for Pillar Technology out of Columbus, but we've got offices in Ann Arbor and Des Moines. Excuse me. I also do side work through Guidepost Systems. I do a lot of technical writing on the side. I do some consulting occasionally on leadership and team building. Focus has really been on testing and quality for probably about the last 10 years. Before that, I was kind of off and on developer, done program management. I've done customer support, grew up a farmer, worked in wine retail, spent 11 years in the military, so it's a rather scatterbrained resume. Eclectic is the classy word, yes.
That's right. We're trying to class this show up a bit. I mean, I ironed a t-shirt. No, I didn't do that today. And you just wrote a book, right? Is that published, or am I spilling the beans?
No. So, yes, after several years of procrastination, finally hit the publish button and got the live version out on LeanPub. My book is called The Leadership Journey, and it came about from just a lot of, I guess it goes all the way back to a series I had on my blog at frazzledad.com. Frazzledad, go figure. On Leadership 101 fundamentals.
Yep. And
then for a while at a number of conferences, I was talking on leadership. Brian Prince asked me to do a workshop on leadership at CodeMash, and I was getting together all this material, and it's like, well, geez, it'd be easy to just throw this together in an ebook.
Yeah.
And then 2 years later, I finally got it finished.
Right. Yeah. All right, so the conversation, like as you and I were just talking, we're going to talk about community some, which is near and dear to both of us, and kind of your journey over the past 10 years. But I'm going to start this show backwards. At the end of every show, I like to extend a bit of gratitude and acknowledge the person that I've been talking with. But today I'm going to actually start it in the front. So in the end, I'm not going to acknowledge you at all. I'm just going to say, whatever, Jim, like it's Friday, let's go drinking. But instead, I'm going to start backwards. So with that being said, I do want to acknowledge you. I want to extend kind of the biggest bit of gratitude to you. You were very pivotal in us getting started with that conference. You were not only had you been part of the leadership team in CodeMash and everything that was part of, but more importantly helped guide me in a way to get that conference off on the right foot. And then even when it was off and we were doing stuff, listen to the crazy rants of like, holy shit, what did I get myself into? And we've kept in touch, very regularly over the past, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. And I certainly attribute a lot of that to you and your guidance and help. So with that, thank you. I appreciate it.
That's kind words, man. I don't think I helped solve any problems with y'all. It was just sometimes you need somebody to talk to that's been there.
Yep.
And you've got a fantastic team there. I'm always leery of saying I'm proud of you folks because when I say I'm proud, that means like, look what I did. No. But man, I'm overjoyed for what you folks have established there. You've taken it and you have run in an incredible direction. So thank you kindly for the words. Seriously. But man, right back at you, because it's just been fun to watch you folks roll. Really has.
I always, I don't take offense. This happens all the time, rightfully so. There's always the the comparison between Code Mash and that conference, and what collusion or whatever went on. Like everybody seems to forget like the greater good of what they are both about. They also seem to forget that unlike Ohio, we live next to the water park capital of the world. For whatever reason, somebody picked a cornfield and then slapped a ginormous amount of water parks in it, and cheese. And from a proximity place like the Kalahari works out great for us. Obviously, we do it in the height of the summer where like it's super expensive for travel, but the kids are there and whatnot. But you had come to that conference, I don't know, 3-4 years ago now. And I remember you saying, very adamantly, like, wow, in my mind, I kind of thought it would be like Code Mash, but it's nothing like it at all. And that was why we can't take the room, like the halls and walls are clearly the same, right? The Kalahari in one verse. I mean, now there's 3 or 4 of them. To us to be our own thing and to have you think like, yeah, they're not the same. There's no copying. Like they both do their own thing. Like that was not that we, our goals were the same as everybody else, right? Build community.
Yeah. And, for my involvement in Code Mash, I couldn't care less if somebody just took and carbon copied it and was successful, right?
Sure.
But early on in the conversations, it was very clear you guys, I mean, it wasn't clear, your vision wasn't clear, but you had a different direction that you wanted to go. There were some common things. I mean, the Kalahari, bacon, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're 2 different cats, man. Totally. And that was very cool. Somebody also posted a picture on Twitter of me like sitting in one of the couches, doing something on my laptop, and they said, I just saw Jim Holmes. He was actually sitting down at a conference. I almost didn't recognize him. and that was like a gift to me because that was the first conference I'd been to in a while where like I only had one session and the rest of the time was hangout time.
Yeah. It's kind of funny. Since I started that conference, my attendance to conferences has drastically decreased due to the planning of one said conference.
It's a lot of hours out of the year. A lot of hours.
That it is. But enough about that, which, as you saw yesterday, all of our trademarks are official. So after years and years and bags of money, it is nice to put that wretched hell behind us. Or maybe we're starting a new wretched hell that I don't even realize. But
that's a major milestone. And it's it's an interesting progression from someone who's like started out working user groups, maybe working like a 1-day code camp. Maybe you get ambitious and do a 2-day code camp, and you're looking at numbers from anywhere from 50 to a couple hundred. And then you start scaling up. And it's like, oh, holy crap, we need to get serious about this LLC or nonprofit to give us liability coverage. Then we need to think about insurance. And then you start, oh, we got to have this copyright. And oh, my God, we got to do this trademarked. And it's a staggering journey that nobody who's like taking that jump up a level, I think it's like parenting, right?
Yeah.
Unless you've been there, you don't get it.
Yeah. And it's, you always get, well, why don't you do this? Well, we can't do that because of this. Well, why don't you do that? Well, legality reasons. Oh, why do you got to do it this way? Well, this and it hates to always have an answer. Not that there's not, we certainly look for creative ways to get around things, but when you're at our level, which is by far not, I think of these tiers, and they usually are with dollar levels, right? You have kind of sub 50,000, you have and if 150 to maybe 600, who's certainly like barely scraping anything. Then you have the 800 to 2 million, and then the the multi-million dollar deals, and it's like you get into these commitments, and you're like, oh, I mean, you need places that can feed enough people, and you're in $500,000, and like at any given point, I guess that's with any business, right? The bottom could fall out, and you're like, well, I still have to pay $500,000. Like,
yeah,
I'm still out the money. It doesn't go away.
No. Yeah, it is weird. And I remember thinking back, reminiscing to the first year of Code Mash. We had our contractual commitments. If everything folded, right?
Yeah.
So like whatever happened.
Yeah.
And by the way, we were on tap for room commitments, so we had to handle room booking.
Yep.
Our website for selling tickets still wasn't live 30 days before the conference started. And my wife had just retired from the military. We're on a cruise with my parents and my kids and my wife, and we're on vacation at Vero Beach, kind of relaxing except for me. And I'm like pacing back and forth because my name is on a contract for $35,000, which is a crap load of money, especially to some broke farmer who did fifth grade twice. But now you talk about moving up those levels, and honest to God, one of the last years that I was involved in Code Mash, we spent more on bacon than we did the entire first, the contractual first. It's just crazy.
Yep.
Crazy.
I remember that first contract too, and it was the sign on the line, and he was like, oh, wait a minute, if I quit tomorrow, I owe you $35,000. I was like, damn, $35,000. Like, man, that's a staggering amount of money. And the first year we were like, I don't know, maybe 90,000 up in expenses, maybe 100,000, 400 people, like totally, I mean, walked in $20,000 upside down, right? Nobody wants to hear the real story, right? Walked in 20,000 upside down. The Kalahari completely crashed and burned. I shouldn't say that. We had issues. We ended up getting a refund back on some of the expenses. We came out like plus $500, and was like, oh shit, we could do this for another year. And now, like the last round of contracts, like $35,000. I mean, we're in hundreds of thousands, and it's by the year of like, you quit now and you owe $275,000 for this and $175,000 for that, and you got your stage commitments and your AV, and you're like, holy balls.
You know, it is so crazy to think about those numbers. But then look what drives that.
Yep.
What does drive that? A crazy group of people.
Yep.
Who want more every year. And I don't mean that as in a demanding, right? Rather,
no.
Both of us are extraordinarily fortunate, blessed, that we've been a part of these crazy communities that started off as, we'll get a couple code camps together, and, the folks from those and the speakers, and we know these people, and we'll get a few folks together in a hall. And then everybody has a good time because it's your friends, and so you got this tight little core, and there were like maybe, I don't know, 30 or 50% of newcomers, right? And they go out and holy crap, it was great.
Yep.
And it's freaking tribbles on crack.
Yep.
Code Mash went over 1 million. I'm not sure where you guys are, but
not there yet.
It was staggering to sit back and think of, man, what drove this? What drove it is a lot of people just starving for good hallway conversations, for good conferences that weren't, in Vegas or Orlando and cost $2,500 and
no corporate motives.
Exactly right. It's and I still speak at some of those, right? But the tone is so much different. And, we said we're going to kind of ramble on about community. Well, holy frickin' crap.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still surreal to step back and look at, what's transpired. And it's because of a bunch of crazy folks
Yeah.
that just want more. And again, not want more in a bad way, but
You're right. Right. I'm very much the same. I mean, the energy that I get from it, I mean, while it is a brutal amount of work, and I don't know that people necessarily could ever fathom the amount of work unless you're inundated into it. Like my wife and I spent thousands of hours last year, and that's just the two of us. Forget the team that is behind me and doing all this.
right,
Thousands of hours. Now, we still have day jobs. Like my kids have become part of it. I'm not going to show the camera, but it's just that conference stuff, like all the way this way, and that's part of
right.
it. And then there's a storage unit, and then there's a this, and then there's a that, and there's all the commitments. And I, well, what I would have never thought that would have ever happened would have been like having a father come to me crying because he's connected with his kid, or seeing another kid teach a kid, or telling a sponsor that they're not allowed to come because they think families at a conference are wrong, or seeing somebody speak for the first time who maybe has a speech impediment and was totally nervous, or seeing, you know, a husband and wife speak together and their kids getting to watch. Like, I never would have, like, those are the stories for me that have let us try to make it a 365 day a year thing, and not like just the 3 days. Cause I can't even get enough of I don't even here, like you here, I've made a thing that I would want to go to and yet can't go to it. And it was like, oh, shit, what did I do that for? Like, I'm running around like I should be on a hoverboard trying to get to place A and B. Now, obviously, our execution's gotten better over the years, and we're able to hire some folks to help here and there. But still, like, it has to go off without a hitch, and that means we're all like hypersensitive to working. But I had some very big media companies tell us before we even started that we'll never pull it off in the Midwest. That the Midwest is shit. That there are no good developers. Like, tech doesn't exist outside of the Valley and Austin and the East Coast. And I was like, whatever. And then we said we were going to
asinine view.
Yeah, but they all failed, and they all failed because they're corporate motives. Whereas you guys and us and others have taken a completely different approach to it, and that has yielded success. And I don't know, I would have never anticipated it.
So there are two really powerful things for me around that community, and they're just little anecdotes. The first or second year, I had a lady email me, and I'd met her, I think, at the conference, and later got to know her very well. She's become a very dear friend, but she mailed me, I don't know if I can get through this. She mailed me thanking me for giving her family their husband and father back, because this guy was ground down in an awful job.
Sure.
And went to Code Mash, and this was back when it was only like 200 the first year, or 300 the first year, right? But it is this beautiful letter that still makes me cry. And she talked about this ground down guy that she knew, came back re-energized, engaged with her daughter. So I keep that in I've got a special folder for stuff just like that, and on really shitty days, I'll pull that out.
I have these trinkets all over the place, right? Like, I don't know how old she was at the time, 13 or 14. She went and took a bunch of rocks, painted them. It's just a rock with a camp.
Oh,
right. And she did a game with the kids around the Kalahari, hide and seek or treasure hunt, whatever type of thing. And like, it was the coolest thing ever. Like, even to think of giving me something like that, like, it's like, I don't know. Yeah, sure. I'll sign another $2 million to keep doing this. Just takes her pebble.
And then let's see. So 2015, 2016, when I was back at Code Mash, um, one of the ladies who helps run Kids Mash
Yep.
came and grabbed me and drugged me down the hall um, into like their closing ceremony. There were 700 kids in the frickin' room.
Yeah.
It was more than the first, almost more than the first 3 years of conference put together for adult attendees.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I see pictures of you guys with a stage full of kids that are fired up and,
Yep.
you know, whether it's robots or, you know, Lego stuff or, you know, weird science. Holy frickin' crap. Yeah, you know, um, I needed to get out of the business for a number of reasons. I was just worn out, and it was time to move on.
Yeah,
But
I was going to ask. I mean, you did get out. You should write a book on that because nice job on your exit. I don't know if if the VCs paid and you got to cash out on all that stock, but how did you? Let me rephrase that. What was it like or what is it like now to not be so inundated? Inundated's a bad word, but not running the daily grind on it.
So let's see. When did I leave? 3 years ago, 4 years ago, about 5 years ago. My life was getting off the rails, and I was traveling a lot for work. I was running a user group back in Dayton. I was involved in a couple small conferences. Was involved in Code Mash and Code Mash. I mean, we had an outstanding crew. They still do, right? But
yeah, oh yeah.
You know, I was putting in 1,000 hours a year.
Yep.
Just for running the show, and it was just untenable.
Yep.
So over the space of a year, I cut off the smaller things and started to talk with the crew about an exit plan.
Sure.
And so we figured out Brian Prancy was just the logical guy to take over.
Yep.
We had that year an incident the year prior that was just kind of a conference organizer's nightmare.
Yeah.
Bunch of drunk people doing some really stupid stuff. It was before the conference started. It was on It was on the venue's bar property.
Yeah.
But we became known as the Rapey Conference.
Yep.
And the amount of venom that I had directed in me on social media, on email, it was just time, because I was a symbol of it, because I was pushing back on a lot of stuff and trying to hold out some things that I felt needed to happen around due process and some other things and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, it just ground me down. And so I gave a quick note to the board and said, you know what, I can't do this anymore. So I'll finish this year out. But I think, frankly, making an announcement and letting the public know, you know, it's, I'll move aside and you can get somebody else in. So the exit wasn't, I mean, some of the mechanics were bad.
Sure.
Right. I mean, it was just hostile, but it was time to go. And frankly, I'd planned for it anyway.
Yeah.
So, you know, the crew took over. They're doing amazing stuff. And now I can just sit back and I've got all that time left over that.
You can barbecue all day long.
Yeah. Yeah, you saw my new grill. It's awesome.
I did.
So there are some things I miss about it, but I don't have regrets, and I'm not wistful, and I have no desire to ever jump back into it ever again. You know, I've done that. I've seen the benefits. I've seen the community do amazing things. I've gotten far more back from the community than I ever put into it, especially this last year with, you know, how crazy my life went. So it's okay to just kind of sit back.
Pass the torch.
yeah, and just watch other people doing amazing things, and uh, yeah, seeing how the communities change, how they grow, how they differ. Yeah, it's
Do you
all
feel
good.
do you feel like you're we'll get to the last year stuff, but do you feel like your relationship with community is different? I mean, obviously it's different now because you're not running Code Mash,
Hmm.
but do you feel like it's different because you're not running it, or because of the incident that like did was there a oh shit it's different now? Is it
You
better? Is it
know,
worse?
well, so you mentioned the incident before I get on. We'll just throw it out in case anybody doesn't know. January 10th, 2017, my 12-year-old son murdered my wife and attacked my daughter, and I was literally on the way to Code Mash when I found out about it.
I didn't realize it was
Uh,
that day.
it was.
I never put that together.
Yeah, I had checked out of my hotel, was finishing up a day at work at my customer in Dearborn,
Yeah,
and was going to leave early and head over to Code Mash. Um, so, uh, is my involvement with the community different now? Hell,
sure.
yes.
Yeah,
The outpouring that I got from the community was staggering. Um, David Giard started a GoFundMe
yep.
to kind of help with costs. Last time I checked, we'd hit $43,000, and there were conferences that I've never even spoken at that I didn't even know of that threw money my way. There are people that I'd met in the community who I know are at a junior level, and I know what the finances are like because I've
Sure.
been there, and they sent me like a month's lunch money. Um, but I mean, so the money's gone to doctors, to lawyers, to all
Yeah,
kinds
yeah,
of stuff. But more importantly, it was like 300 or 400 people, a lot of whom I
yeah,
didn't even know.
yeah, yeah,
Um, there are no words,
yeah.
but the thing is that especially in the Midwest. So you happen to mention media companies talking down the Midwest. I've heard the same thing, right?
Yeah.
But I'll
Yep.
tell you what, show me any conference on either of the coasts that are not vendor driven and
Yep.
that have the level of return attendees
Yep.
and the level of energy or vibe as that conference, as CodeMash, as St. Louis Data.net. I mean,
Yep.
you frickin' media jerks can talk it down all you want, but there is nothing like that community that's built up
Yep.
of the heartland.
Yep.
Um, and so just the outpouring was, it's been 14 months and I still don't know how to put words around it. I
Sure.
still don't.
Sure. I mean, that's a pretty major life event. One that I don't think any of us can really comprehend, and I'm sure you're still struggling with comprehending that. Like, how have you been able to? I don't want to say reintegrate, but I mean, obviously, families first. You got a shit ton of family stuff to take care of, but yet
Yeah.
gotta pay the bills. I mean,
So,
gotta move on, right? Gotta get back on the
yeah.
job. Like money's not endless. $43,000, 45, fuck, call it 100,000. That sounds like a lot of money, but it goes quick.
Um, yeah, that's a drop in the bucket for lawyers and doctors,
Yeah.
frankly. Um, and need to get my family out of the old house, find a new place. Just,
Yep.
can't stay there. Um, so my wife and I worked really, really hard for a lot of years, and we skimped and we scraped. And if anybody's followed me on Twitter or other social
Yep.
media, we've had big vacations, but we've we busted our ass with savings. So when this all happened, um, like immediately I knew I was done with work for a year.
Sure.
So basically, the last year taken, I'm nowhere near full time. I'd mentioned I do some writing.
Yeah.
My company, Pillar Technology, has been extraordinary, does not come to
Sure.
cover how well they've treated me. Um, so they've kept me involved, basically whatever hours I could work. So I got a few hours here, a few hours there. I did take one trip, do kind of some road trip and some
Yeah.
team evaluations, retros kind of stuff. They're ramping me back on other things. Um, but
That's
you know,
pretty.
it was
That's there's a lot to be said for that. Like, big applause for them, because all too often I have a conversation with somebody today who's like, well, the company's got their foot on my throat, and I can't get my kid to daycare, or like I can't take them to daycare because they've got the flu, but my company doesn't care, and I have to take a day off, but I got like 3 days left, and it's like, I mean, you and I both worked for Telerik, which was a European company, or well, I guess it's not anymore. Sadness. And I learned a lot from working directly for Europeans who value things much differently than the U.S. I don't want to paint broad strokes and say every U.S. company, because it's certainly not that. But I think in this case, right, I think Pillar should be given a pat on the back for doing what they did and doing the right thing instead of the wrong thing, which seems to be what everybody's doing in the U.S.
Yeah, not everybody. I don't even know what the percentage is, but it's a freaking crap load and it's way too many.
Yeah.
Uh, I actually quit a job working for a major defense contractor 13 years ago. We had a deal worked out with my boss where my son had just been born, and he was not. We didn't want to do baby daycare, so we worked something out where I'd work part of the morning in the office, get all of my meetings done, face-to-face stuff, head back home. My wife was getting ready to retire in like 2 years. So this was like a bridge thing. Take care of the kid, get him old enough to where he can go to preschool, and then we're kind of okay with, a little more. Company reviewed their policies and said, nah, you know what? That's not going to work. You're going to have to put your kid in full-time daycare. And my response was kind of like, no, I really don't have to.
Yeah.
So I quit. And I spent 10, 11 months unemployed, wrote my first book then, took care of stuff, took care of the family. It was awesome. It also sucked. And then, when life got back around, moved in. But, kind of here's the thing again. This doesn't work for everybody, but my wife and I had always set up everything so we were only reliant on one income, and we had this huge bankroll that if everything fell apart, we were going to be safe until we could figure stuff out, right?
Yeah.
So, I was able to make a choice of I'm not going to put up with the shenanigans from this employer. And I've been in that same spot a couple times. Once, after my wife had retired and I was the sole breadwinner, I was stuck at a place where I worked for a great human who was a horrible boss. And it was a lot more difficult because I was the sole breadwinner and there was just all kinds of mental baggage there, right? So kind of a couple tangents there, but bringing it back, there are awesome companies out there, but sometimes you've got to be able to set yourself up to make that leap, and get out of that bad place. And that's hard. That's hard.
Yeah. Yeah. I certainly try to coach people that, like, if the deal's not working, leave. Like, leave. We are not in the 30s and 40s and 50s where you may get to work for a company for 30 years. Like, there is no allegiance In fact, I was telling somebody the other day, like, do you think that the company would double check with their staff, like if it worked well to fire you today, or if they should wait until after your next mortgage payment? If the answer is no, then why are you so concerned? If that
Exactly.
relationship is not there with them in the service, or if you're not even doing something you're passionate about, get the hell out. Like, go find something else. Go try something else. Do not just stick around and keep doing. Because on both sides, right? Like, if you're working for me and you're doing something that you're not passionate about, I'm not even getting the most out of my money. Like, you're not
Right.
doing me any good, and you're not doing you any good. So
Yeah.
that's not even a good relationship there. Like,
No.
you got to find what makes you tick and then exploit the living shit out of that, because that's when it's fun and you're going to do your best work.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, we just we humans miss so much of our potential. From both directions, right? The best experiences I've had as leading teams or being a boss is watching somebody just take off and
Oh
explode.
yeah.
Not that I like guided them and molded them, right, but like was
Enabled.
able, like, enabled, empowered, and
Yeah.
expected, right? It's like,
Yes.
look, I'm going to give you all of this. You damn well better do something with it.
That's right.
And um, it's yeah, yeah, boy, that's about another 6-day conversation with some adult
Ah,
beverages there, huh?
it is, and it's funny. I'll just tack on one more story with that. I can remember I was running a team. This is a number of years ago at this point now, but I had a team of like 5 or 6 people, and we got pulled to the side to do a bunch of architecture stuff, and it was, whatever, kind of this black ops thing. And the first thing I said to the team was, or when I took over, I had this conversation with management, but then when I got the team, basically said, okay, guess what? New rules. So we had all been grinding out, 50, 60, 70-hour weeks, 80-hour weeks. I said, new rule. Nobody's going to work over 40, period. End of story. I don't care. Nobody's working over 40. Everybody go home. We'll come back in 2 days. We'll get the sprint set up. And it's summer, and so we're going to do 410s, and we're going to take Fridays off, and the next week, or like we'll flip them, whatever, so that it was, 8s and a half a day and 410s and take Friday off. And we got a good project manager, and we got things set up. That team, me and that crew, we pumped out more stuff with less bugs, faster than anybody could have ever imagined. There were people, we were the happiest group of jokers working in a 20 by 20 room, smelling up the
Right.
place. And it was awesome. We saved the company $25 million because somebody let us do it a little bit different. And I hear on a weekly basis, oh, we got to take the hill. Going to need somebody to work this weekend. It's like, nope,
Nope.
not going to do
Nope.
it. It's not good. You're not going to get the return you think you're going to get.
And moreover, it's likely nowhere near as important as you're making
Oh,
it out to be.
yeah.
And I spent 11 years running radar in flight on planes, so I was air crew, and I got a little different take on what's really important. It's like, yeah, I'm going to need you to come in and work that PowerPoint deck this weekend. It's like, I'm sorry, we're like people dying because of that. There are some situations where you do need to do that, right?
That's right.
If you've got a crippling network outage that's costing you tens of thousands of bucks per
Sure.
second, and I've been there, or you got lives on the line, yeah, but the rest of it, man, go be a human.
Yeah.
And it's like water in a garden.
Yeah.
You talk about that team just taking off and doing amazing stuff. I think in a somewhat overlapping way that ties back to just the power community, right?
Yeah.
Because you get some excited people and you recognize them, you give them a safe place to kind of grow and explore.
Yep.
Had a team in India that started out on a project I worked on for 2.5 years, as the worst team out of like 6. Bug rates, horrible
Oh yeah, yeah,
code.
yeah.
I mean, just awful. Um, and I went over, worked with him a couple times. A couple other coaches worked with him. We got him a really good manager. And in the space of like 8 months, they went from the worst performing to the best. And because we'd shown them some attention, we'd given them some expectations of, you got to figure this out on your
Yeah,
own. We'll
yeah.
help you. But, man, you give humans a little attention and a little kindness and they'll
Goes a long way.
explode.
Yeah.
Goes a long way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's been one of our mantras with that conference. I mean, uh, it is not about the education, and it is all about the people. Like, if you want to get educated, then go find Google or Udemy or Pluralsight. You're there. You're attending about learning about people's experiences. You're attending to grow a network. There's a reason we have 30 minutes between sessions, because I want you to go shake somebody's hand. I don't want you wandering aimlessly down the hall with looking at people's shoes. Like, you are there because there's 1,600 other people there, and that's 1,599 of them will help raise all tides that lifts all boats, right? You can go learn how to do a JavaScript promise on your own time. Come
Yeah.
for the people, and that will lift you. It'll reinvigorate you. That's what it's about.
And I see comments from people who've come back from like the big coast conferences or the
Yeah.
ones in Vegas, and they talk about, oh, 4 days, I'm wiped out. You
You're,
see
you went
tweets
to the
from
wrong thing.
and you contrast that with somebody talking about come back from Code Mash
Yeah.
from St. Louis, whatever, that conference,
Yeah.
the Midwest ones, where that community is the reason you go, and the tweets will be, oh my God, I'm so wiped out and I'm so exhausted and I can't wait to get back to work Monday to try something I
Yeah.
just found sitting in the hot tub with somebody. It, you know, it, I don't know how you replicate that. I mean, how the hell did we pull this off? I mean,
It's
it's
funny you say
freaking awesome.
it's funny you say pulled off, because I just think we're just getting started. I mean, I think of the first few years, and they were like kind of like kids, right? You have that beginning few where they're in diapers, and you're just like, oh my God, like I'm just changing diapers all the time. I just can't wait till I stop changing diapers, and then you get into the your 3-year-old or 4-year-old who's like, you better do this in 1, 2, and then they're like 3, 4, 5. Now what, Dad? And you're like, gosh, God, I just got outsmarted by a 3-year-old, and so like a lot of the beginning years are a blur. And I think of now, it's like, okay, well, we got the execution good. We're psycho enough that the money, we're not hyperventilating on every minute of kind of the commitment and risk factors, and we can at least now afford to talk to a lawyer who will help do things, and whatever, like all the other, I call it the big boy stuff, but the goo that just has to happen. Whereas before you were just faking it, like, oh, I need a legal contract. Let me see, this guy's got something. I'll take that paragraph, and I'll take this one. That seems like it reads pretty nice together, right?
Yeah.
and now I think it's like, now we're able to lean on the community and ask for help to do a thing, or to go get somebody. Like, I love connecting people on a daily basis. Like, I'll have somebody come to me and say, hey, I'm looking through this. Okay, hey, I want you to go talk to Joe, or go talk to Sarah. And I've connected women to women and men to women, and hey, but there's very few of those people who realize the thing that's in front of them. Like, you have this net. There's 800, like our Slack. There's 800 people. It easily should be 3,000, but there's 800. Okay, guess what? You have 799 other people that you can somehow offer or help or whatever. And on the flip, they have that in your network too. And if you just get a little involved, like the things that happen as a result of that is absolutely staggering. But not everybody sees it. Like I get some people are afraid or shy or whatever, but you give somebody an inch. Typically, what I've seen, you give somebody an inch and they'll give you a mile. And go, like,
yep. Yeah, for a long time, my Twitter bio was just, I don't know much, but I know people that do.
Yeah.
And, yeah, that is such I mean, I've lost track of the number of inspirations and ideas and just flat out answers I've gotten from hallway conversations at good conferences. I mean, I mean, literally one time I was struggling with a SharePoint problem. Sorry, I used
dear
SharePoint.
Lord. God, get that shit out of here.
Yeah.
There's no place for that. There's no place for that foul language on this here very put together show.
Damn straight. So I'm literally in a window chatting to a guy back at the office who's working on this one problem, and I'm in a presentation where SharePoint guy pops up a slide and it's the freaking solution we needed. And so I get a conversation, and this was stuff that was all cutting edge.
Yeah. In 1997.
Yeah.
Is that when SharePoint came out? Somewhere around 94.
Yeah, I've been SharePoint free for 10 years. I'm happy to say.
Oh my God, we get to celebrate that. I'm so happy for you.
Yep.
I'm going to send you a button.
Jason Follis, a good friend who is still on the board at Code Mash, got this awesome picture of me like 10 years ago at one of the Dea.nets. I had like short hair and I was thinner and I was in better shape. And then he had a picture of me from like the last Code Mash, and I'm in a Hawaiian shirt and I got this long scraggly hair and my beard's all unkempt. And he just captioned it, SharePoint, not once.
That's pretty good. I managed to miss that one. So here we've rapped about community. You've seen kind of both sides of the community outpour. I mean, you've seen just what everybody else experiences, and the fact that the community kind of came to you, or I don't say rescue, that doesn't seem right, but to your support.
Lifted me up from the darkest pit anybody could imagine.
So now what? How's your journey today? Like, so it's been over a year. Shit's obviously not written. There's no books that you can read. There's nobody you can talk to that can tell you like, hey, just do this. Now, I mean.
So first off, I'll make a pitch. We don't talk about mental health enough. There's lots of stories about how we got to this point that involve some mental health, but wouldn't have made it through this last year without a couple great mental health professionals. And, especially guys, we're leery about reaching out for that. And we as society here don't talk much about it. That's something that needs to change. So
let's dive into that for a minute, because maybe, I mean, what does that even mean? I mean, how do you know if you should go talk?
Well, so I'll start off with something about 7 years ago. I talked about this at my last Kalamazoo X, which is another awesome community conference.
Yes, it is.
About 7 years ago or so, I was in a very dark place and was starting to consider suicide. And I heard a clip on NPR where a guy was talking about working with kids, and he said, so I talked to the kids, and the ones that I worry about are the ones that have a plan, like they visualized how they're going to do it. And that was a holy shit
for suicide.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. So
The
fellow
kid
talking with
talking to the
suicidal
kids
kids.
about suicide. Yeah, I got you.
Right. And the ones that he was concerned about were those who would visualize the plan. And that was my holy shit moment. So, here's the thing. Depression sometimes is hard to understand when you're in it. But, going to counseling, and this is another kind of weird misperception. It's not like ripping everything open and, going all the way back to your childhood. If you're struggling and you're finding that you can't lift yourself up, go find somebody, through your church. Go pay somebody. Go find a real mental health professional.
Sure.
Friends can only take you so far. And if you're finding that your friends aren't helping you get out of whatever this funk is, and this funk has been going on,
Yeah.
take that step. And that's a hard step. After my wife was murdered and my daughter was attacked, I knew that I'd need help because,
yeah,
it's pretty obvious, but, stuff had happened in the past and I'd known the benefits of that. They'd given me some tools. But my life was so freaking busy of just taking care of all of the mechanical things for 3 months. And then I pretty much spent 2 months trying to drink myself to death, pulled myself out of that. And it's like, okay, now I need the help.
Sure.
So sometimes it's really hard to figure out when to go get real help.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you've been struggling for a while, go see somebody.
Yeah.
And what's the worst that can happen?
Yep.
They will help you, and they will give you tools.
Yeah.
And it might just be like 2 visits, and they're like, you know what? You're just overly anxious about this, and it's not a real big deal. And here's all the things you're doing right. Taking the step's hard, but everybody's worth it.
Yeah. Did your son have mental health issues?
So there were some with him, and frankly, I was in a relationship with my wife who was emotionally abusive for a lot of years, and just didn't realize the magnitude of it. So a lot of things bubbled up and exploded while I was out of town.
Did you, hindsight's always 20/20 since we're talking about seeing, if we're in a bad place, I'm going to have to assume you didn't necessarily see the place your son was in. Our responsibility as parents is obviously exponentially harder, and it's easy to kind of just, cheerio, kid, like, buck up. And that's not necessarily the right thing to do either.
No. So he's got his own story that some year I hope he'll tell. Sure. But his condition did not allow him to speak up. And I, as a parent, just let the status quo go a little too long. So
it's a hard one. As somebody who also has a 12-year-old, and school, I look at the school pressures that our kids have today, and they're nothing. I grew up in the ghetto, and we had to deal with gang violence and shootings. But if you were a pretty straight-laced kid, like, you stayed out of that kind of stuff, right? And there was a pretty well-known line. Unless you were crossing that line, you should be able to stay out of trouble.
Yeah.
Now, like, we moved out to the sticks, and bullying is a thing, and cyberbullying. It's not like you're getting flicked in the back of the head. This is taunting online. This is things that I can't relate to, and I feel bad as a father. Like, I feel like I should be able to say, no, son, in this situation, like, maybe try this. Like, when I grew up, the situation was, you take your ass outside and you go get in a fist fight, and you end it like it's ended on the playground at the time, and you moved on. And that's not the case today. Like, it's not the same world by any stretch.
No, no. Lot of different pressures, and if things aren't square at home, then
Yeah.
it's just making that even harder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I will admit to you, or I will reinforce your story about getting help. I had gone and got some acupuncture. My wife forced me to go get some acupuncture, and we're in the middle of trying to be our own company, and so we have a new company that we're trying to kind of get off the ground. And times are tough, times are stressful, and so she sends me off to the acupuncturist. I don't know if that's the right term for somebody who
Yep.
stabs you with needles. And an aha moment for me was when I had left, or when I was getting ready to leave. She told me, and I only knew the lady for 90 minutes, right? She told me,
Yeah.
you need to let go of your fear, and you just need to go do. And I was like, well, that came out of the blue. Like, we didn't have like a very psychological session. I mean, we were talking about stress and stuff, but like,
Yeah.
I didn't think anything. And she's like, you're holding on to too much fear. I was like, holy shit, she didn't know that I was starting a business. She didn't wow, that was on point. Like, okay, sure, I'll do that.
So stress manifests itself in the body in very clear, measurable ways by folks that know how to
Yeah,
read that stuff.
yeah,
I've been doing acupuncture too a bit. Um, and good acupuncturists see the physical
yeah.
manifestations of that.
It's really weird. It's
Yeah.
so weird. It's like,
And
whew, I feel like I was violated. You poked into my soul.
yeah, but so that's the thing about going to get some I mean, you didn't even realize that. You weren't
Yeah,
necessarily searching for that.
right.
You were off,
Yep,
in a
somewhere else.
different area, but um the thing is that those professionals, acupuncturist, therapist, psychologist, whomever, see things that they've had decades of experience with and that you can't see because you're too much
Yeah,
wrapped up
yeah,
into the trauma, the grief, the stress,
yeah.
whatever. Um, and so you go see somebody who's disinterested, experienced, and they're like, let go of the fear. It's like, that was like 5 seconds, right? It was that. I mean, I've had some very aha moments with the various mental health pros that I've had over the last 14 months. Um, and some of it has been disturbing and, just kind of gets me in another bad place, and we work through
Sure.
that. Some of it has been extraordinarily relieving.
Sure.
So when that lady told you let go of the fear, aside from the where'd that come from, hopefully that also hit us like, oh,
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty
And
crazy.
too often we're too close, and we don't like opening up about that stuff,
Yeah. Yeah.
for so many reasons.
Well, I think we'll end this conversation there because I have a feeling we could kind of keep going on this for quite a long time, and maybe we should have another one of these, another Jim check-in.
I love talking with you, man. You guys have done so much great stuff, and I'm always happy to chat about this kind of stuff with you.
Well, like I said in the beginning, we appreciate all of the help, the guidance. We look forward to having you come back again sometime. I thought you were crazy last year when you said you wanted to come, and I'm glad I told you to, with a bunch of swear words, to not come. Um, and with that being said, what would be and maybe you just drop this, but let's end on Jim's advice for the world. What would be your piece of advice for everybody who's been listening, watching?
Be kind.
Damn straight. Damn straight. I don't think we get enough of that.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, folks. Hey, you heard the man. Be kind. So give us a thumbs up. That's how that works. No, in all seriousness, hey, leave some comments. We'd love to hear what you think. We're now officially a podcast too, so we are on your favorite podcast player, and if we're not, let me know, and I'll add that to the syndication list of syndications. Thank you for watching, Jim. Thank you for the conversation. As always, it's fantastic. I'm glad that you are able to share your story. I know the last year has been incredibly hard, and I mean I'm at a distance, and it's hard for me to think about, holy shit, what would I do if I was in that situation? And it's really grounded us to always remember that family's first and enjoy the moment, and life's short, and God knows what tomorrow will hold. So
yeah.
Thank you.
Go hug your loved ones.
Damn straight, and be kind.